Imagine owning as much land as your eyes can see, right? In 2000, a typical US house cost about a third of what it does now. The land under it, even less. Fast forward 26 years, houses have tripled, farmland quietly quadrupled, and prime city land. Some acres now cost tens of millions. So if land keeps gaining value, how much is actually enough before you're either exposed or trapped? Let's find out. You've probably heard this one before. Homes have tripled since 2000. It sounds impressive, right? Almost like buying a house back then would have made you rich today. But that headline, it hides the real story. In January 2000, the Case-Shiller National Home Price Index was set at 100. That's our baseline. Fast forward to 2026, and it's sitting around 329. So yes, on paper, homes are about 3.3 times more expensive than they were 26 years ago. Now, when most people talk about rising home prices, they're thinking about the house itself, the walls, the roof, the kitchen upgrades. But in reality, the house didn't triple in value. It's the land beneath. It's the land that exploded in value. In many cities, especially big metros, the land can now be as valuable as, or even more than, the building sitting on it. That's why two houses that look similar in size and style can cost wildly different amounts depending only on where they sit. Location is a price multiplier. And once you separate the land from the building, the geography of power suddenly becomes obvious. Prime spots in big cities like Manhattan or San Francisco have land that trades for tens of millions per acre. Meanwhile, the same house somewhere inland or on a few acres of farmland is worth a fraction of that. That distinction sets the stage for everything else. 40 years ago, land was mostly the side dish. Back in the late 1970s, the dirt your house sat on made up about 16% of its total value. The rest was the building, the walls, roof, and floors. Most people didn't even think much about the land. But today, especially in major cities, that picture has completely flipped. In expensive metros, land now accounts for 30 to 50% of a home's value. In some neighborhoods, the land alone could cost as much as the building itself. Look around the country, and the difference is staggering. In big, crowded cities, the cost of land keeps climbing. Meanwhile, in smaller cities or rural areas, land is much cheaper. The building might be the same size, but the location changes everything. In many cities today, you're literally buying permission to exist there. That small plot of dirt determines whether you're in the heart of opportunity or stuck far from it. And once you start comparing prime urban land to farmland or smaller city lots, the differences are almost unbelievable. But what happens when you line up prime dirt against everything else? How does it change the way you think about value, investment, and opportunity? For this, we'll have to start with one of the most famous pieces of dirt in the world, Manhattan. Back in the late 1990s, average condo space in Manhattan cost about $328 per square foot. A lot for most people, but it was just the beginning. But moving into 2025, and new development condos in prime areas are selling for roughly $2,200 per square foot. That's nearly 7 times higher. To make sense of it, think in acres. 1 acre has 43,560 square feet. Multiply that by $2,000 to $2,200 per square foot, and you get roughly $87 million per acre of built-up Manhattan. That's compressed economic gravity. Every square foot is worth millions. It's the kind of number that makes you step back and rethink what land really means in a city like this. Now compare that to somewhere completely different, say Iowa farmland. A single acre might cost around $4,000, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on the crop and soil quality. You can buy thousands of acres for what 1 Manhattan acre costs. It's a dramatic contrast. The same word, acre, but the value couldn't be more different. So, is prime land actually better or just louder? Prime city land grabs headlines, makes fancy news graphics, and seems like the ultimate status symbol. But just because it's expensive and flashy doesn't automatically make it a smarter investment. Sometimes the quieter, more stable land in less crowded regions can deliver steady growth and real value over time. Back in 1997, average U.S. farmland cost about $1,270 per acre. But today, that same farmland now averages around $4,350 per acre. Record highs in history. It didn't explode overnight. There were no bidding wars. It grew slowly over decades, about 5 to 6% nominal growth per year, quietly compounding value while the rest of the world chased trends. An average urban land in metros with over 1 million people sits around $65,000 per acre, much higher than farmland, of course. But it's unstable. Prices can swing up or down in months. Farmland It moves very stable, but if land works, if it protects wealth, grows quietly, and survives inflation, why not just go all in? Why not put everything into land and let it sit there? When people talk about investing, stocks usually grab the spotlight. Think of the dot-com crash in the early 2000s. Everyone remembers those wild swings, the headlines, the panic. Stocks felt exciting, but risky. Now look at the long view. Over decades, U.S. real estate has delivered returns roughly on par with the stock market, about 9 to 10% a year, depending on the study. That's not a typo. Real estate has kept pace with stocks over the long term, but the ride is very different. Stocks are liquid. You can buy and sell in minutes. Real estate, not so much. Selling a house or farmland takes weeks, months, sometimes longer. Add in local risks, zoning rules, weather, natural disasters, and property values can swing in ways stocks don't. And don't forget taxes and maintenance. Owning real estate is hands-on in a way stocks aren't. So even though stocks and real estate might reach the same destination over time, the journey looks nothing alike. That difference is important because it explains a common mistake people will make in 2026. They see that land or housing has grown steadily for years and assume it's safe, easy, or risk-free. Or they see stocks soaring and think they missed the train. In reality, it's only about understanding the ride, the risks, and the timing. That's the trap many fall into, which leads to the real trap people will fall into in 2026. Too little and inflation quietly eats away at your wealth. Your money loses value while you watch prices rise. Too much and your life becomes tied down. Suddenly, your net worth is mostly frozen in dirt and buildings you can't sell quickly. Think about someone who puts 70% of their net worth into a single house. It might feel safe at first, but what if the local market dips or your job moves across the country? Selling that house quickly is hard. Career opportunities, life changes, even emergencies. Everything becomes harder when your wealth is stuck in one spot. Zoning laws, flood risks, property taxes, and upkeep all add hidden costs. Land is valuable, but it only works if it's the right amount for your situation. Then what does enough actually look like on paper? How much land should you own to protect yourself, grow your wealth, and still keep your life flexible? This is where you need to build strategy. Most experts suggest keeping about 25 to 40% of your total net worth in real estate. Within that, a smaller slice, maybe 5 to 15%, can go into land-heavy assets like farmland, rural plots, or land banking lots. The goal isn't to own every acre you can see. It's to have enough to protect yourself, but not so much that it traps your wealth or ties your life down. When done right, land becomes a tool, not a burden. Enough to safeguard your future, not enough to imprison it. Let's say someone with $500,000 net worth followed a balanced approach. About 10% might go into land-heavy assets, roughly $50,000. Now watch the difference. On one side of the screen, $50,000 buys about 11 acres of Iowa farmland, open fields, room to roam, productive soil. On the other side, the same $50,000 in Manhattan. You get a tiny sliver of land, maybe the size of a single parking space under a condo. One gives you breathing room and potential growth. The other, well, it's a foothold in the world's most expensive city. And that's the lesson. It's all about exposure, how much of your wealth is tied up, where it's tied up, and what it can actually do for you. A few acres of farmland can protect, grow, and remain flexible. A sliver of Manhattan land might give prestige, but it can't solve every problem. But what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want some more deep dive on investment, I would recommend you check out this video about how much gold and dollar you need to own in 2026.